Thank you for joining us on our HT Precision Virtual Field Day. I'd like to introduce this next segment and give you a little bit of background on how this came to be. So while I was completing my graduate work at the University of Guelph, the professor whom I was being advised by was very involved with universities in Brazil. So through my opportunities at the University of Guelph, I was able to spend 3 weeks learning at different universities throughout Brazil. Through these experiences, I was able to make some contacts. And one of these contacts has put me in touch with Camilla. Camilla is an agricultural engineer with Agrochapada. It is one of the largest farms in Brazil, and I thought it would be of interest to share a little bit about agriculture in Brazil to some of our customers and how they're using John Deere equipment on those farms there, as well as some of the agronomic practices and how that compares to Ontario. So I hope you enjoy my interview with Camilla and learn a little bit about agriculture in Brazil. I guess, what is the name of the farm and where is the farm located?
It is called Agrochapada. In Portuguese, is Agropecuária Chapada dos Guimarães, because we work with farm and cattle. The farm is located in Paranatinga, in the state of Mato Grosso. Mato Grosso is the biggest soybean producer in Brazil.
Yeah, so it's right in the thick of the soybean country. And so what is the crop rotation on the farm? Like, are you able to get more than one crop per season at the farm, or?
Yes, in one season we have soybean crop and corn crop. We plant soybean in September or October, depends on the rain, and we harvest soybean in January. The corn is planted almost simultaneously with soybean, and the corn harvest occurs in June.
So you guys are getting busy right now then with things in the field for planting the soybeans.
Yes, it's starting the sowing now because the rain came yesterday in some places here in Mato Grosso.
Okay, so is the rain a major limiting factor, I guess you would say? Like it's a challenge?
Mato Grosso is located in zone. There is 6 months of rain and 6 months without nothing rain, with no rain. So the crops are studied to be planted in this time.
In terms of the location of the farm, what are the soils like there? Are they sandy, or are they more clay based, and are they very fertile, or you have to apply a lot of fertilizers to the soil, or maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Because of the scale of the farm, we have an heterogeneous soils, but in general they are more sandy and have low natural fertility, but we can find more lato soils or candy soils.
What size is the farm? How many hectares or acres is the farm?
It's one of the most largest farm in Brazil, with 222,000 acres, but only 136,000 acres are explored. In 113,000 of acres, just 25,000 acres are for plant. The others is just for cattle.
Okay. Some of the acres are still natural vegetation, like they'll still have trees and things on there, or what's the natural landscape in that part of the world?
Today is has something about Amazon forest and something like Cerrado. I don't know how to say that in English.
Size of that farm is unimaginable here. That's humongous. So what kind of personnel, like how many people are involved, how much equipment? Like there must be hundreds of people involved, maybe.
Yes. In at the year in common time, we have something about 150 employees. But in soybean harvest, that can reach 200 people
Wow.
because we hire some operators to run faster with the harvest because of the corn sowing. So we have much people.
Wow.
We have 4 equipments, which are 14 of that are combines.
Wow. That's a lot of equipment. You mentioned the farm also has animals. So there's, I believe, cattle on the farm. So what's the scale of that operation?
Yes, we have intensive and extensive system with cattle. Some fields are in a season grain and in a season pasture. So we work with rotation. In dry season, normally the cattle be on extensive system, and in wet season they go to intensive system. Last year we had 13,000 cattle were slaughtered.
Sometimes when we hear about Brazil and farming in Brazil, we hear about challenges with grain storage or trucking the grain to be delivered to the port. Like what kind of challenges are there with your location and where your grain has to be delivered?
With the storage, we don't have some much problems because in the farm we have 7 silos with 750,000 bags of capacity. So storage, it's not our problem, but with the transport, there is a seriously problem. It's a national problem here. Bad because the roads aren't paved around the farm and there isn't any some phone signs. So in rain season, the trucks get bogged and it cause too much problem for us and for the drivers and the grain that's stocked on the truck and everything. It's a very difficult system.
Are there houses? Like, do people live out near where the farm is, or is it very isolated and remote where the farm is?
It's very remote.
Yeah.
We are 140 kilometers from a city, from the city in case, né? And just 40 kilometers near there is a village, and the employees in the farm lives in the farm. It's a very remote place.
So you had mentioned that the soils are naturally not very fertile. So on the farm of that size, are you able to do soil sampling and apply fertilizers, or does that become very costly? Or how do you manage soil fertility?
Every year we do soil sample, and the results of the analysis are interpreted for fertilizing prescriptions. We do some mineral and biological fertilizers. And we use some limestone and potassium chloride. And in sowing, we use some nitrogen and phosphate fertilization. Besides, we use also nitrogen fixing bacteria. And after the planting, but almost at the same time, like we finished that field with planting, we start to do the potassium chloride.
Okay. Now, will you apply nitrogen to your soybeans or only to the corn?
Soybean too.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Really?
I guess you mentioned a little bit about using prescriptions for the fertilizer. So for your sampling, are you sampling, like, what size of area do you collect a sample from?
Depends on the size of the field. They do more samples, more point samples. Example, in a 300 field, 300 hectares field, maybe they do something like 10 samples of one acre.
Okay.
1 hectare, na verdade.
In terms of the technology at the farm, you've sent me some pictures. So you have some John Deere technology that's on the farm, or equipment that's on the farm. What type of technology are you using in those tractors in the fields?
We use some variable rate applications in seed rates through the field and occasionally in minor fertilization. But in fertilization, we mostly use this for potassium chloride. That's why we do always every year the soil sample too.
Okay. So are you gathering yield maps off of your combines when you're harvesting the crop?
Yes, for harvesting, for planting.
So on the variable rate prescriptions, do you guys ever do any variable rate of your seed, like for the soybean seed to put higher population of soybeans in certain parts of the farm?
Yes, we do this with 2 planters because we have only 2 planters that has this technology.
Okay.
And like the soil is very heterogeneous, this kind of technology is very good to have a good population after.
In terms of technology, is there any other things that is interesting that you guys are doing? Like, do you use software to manage your data, or how do you view your yield maps and analyze things?
The yield maps we do in the machines, in the equipments, in John Deere's operation centers.
I guess one question that we might have here, just of interest sake, is what kind of yields, crop yields, would you get in corn and soybeans in that in Mato Grosso?
I don't have it here now. I can send you.
Sure. Camilla did provide some further information on soybean and corn yields of the farm. Interestingly, very good yielding soybeans and not so good corn. So I appreciate your time today. I know you got to get going here. So yeah.
I'm very thankful for the opportunity.